Okay, folks. So this morning, we need to do a bit of cleanup. And by cleanup, I mean just put these panzers away. And kind of clean our palette of stuff. Now these guys are still going to need to get clear coated. Geez, do they not fit in here? Wow. We can get them. We can get them in there now. And this guy we have to pull out, and we need to clear coat him by pan painting him. Just that one. That looks like he's holding in a wee. Oh, he's holding in a wee pea. Go for it. What's happening? I'm just going to drop this guy in here in with the penny. And these are complete. And now I'm going to put everything away so we can clear this area. Clear the area. Clear coat. No oil. Good morning, Marcus. You should leave more often because bam, they're done. Well, they're not sealed yet. Except the Mark IV. I don't know what I'm going to do with the Mark IV. I don't know where the little hatch is for it. I'm probably gonna at some point order a pair of D's and another E, and just have them make me another E turret. And that's probably how I'm gonna move forward with that. let's see if I can break one of them or whatever. Drop one. I did save enough little accoutrement for the Mark IV because it looks barren compared to these. These tanks are too detailed. They're horrendously detailed. In a good way. Horrendous in a good way. And we had a big old splooge disaster last night. Not really a disaster. It didn't get on anything. It actually fell exactly where it needed to. So for this morning, I think what I'm going to do is, we got stoof here. Let's get rid of that stoof. I think we're going to work on the Rommel figure, because first of all, he's right here. I think so. Some of these tanker figures came out really well. I especially like the guy with the goggles. But yeah, they look pretty nice. They look pretty nice. Except these colors change so much depending on what lighting. They're going to look totally different in the out. They're going to look totally different outside. They're going to look totally different with this light on, with this light off. It's just same thing with Dunkelgelb. Dunkelgelb is probably worse. Yeah. And you can't even see it worth a damn on here. Crazy amount of detail. But I learned a couple things. First of all, if I'm going to put all the bits and bobs on here, the little extras, I'm going to have to do that to the British also. And I don't have any British ones, so I'm going to have to go shopping. And I'm going to make some. I mean, there's some things I can make. I'm going to go to Hobby Lobby and get some wire, get some copper wire that's very flexible. Because when you're making like, a lot of like the British tanks have, especially on the sides of the actual tank themselves, they'll have like this, I don't know what the hell they're for, these long like cloth wrapped up like these tarps. And it's like, man, I can make that out of green stuff, but you know, there's like ties in them. I'm like, I don't want to like sculpt that too. I'm a noob when it comes to sculpting shit. So, I could probably put like a little ties that could stand out. I've looked at some of the sets that are available online, and none of them are really inspirational. They're kind of like, honestly, pretty crappy. I decided not to put any German sun helmets on any of these tanks at the moment. I can always go in and add them later if I feel like I need to. I left that off. But, alright, so we need to find a picture of Rommel. You going to post it? Well, after I post the figures, I mean, the people that I do the 3D casting for, he couldn't even wait for the real pictures. He was already posting unofficial photos of these guys. Like, relax, man. I normally don't work on this many tanks at once, but Rommel in North Africa. Okay, so he's wearing his. Man, it's gonna take some time to find this. Maybe this isn't the best thing to do. Fuck it, we're not doing him right now. It's an Afrika Korps video, but we're not gonna work on Afrika Korps stuff. Let's go back to our ambulance. Right? That's the right call. We were already working on this. Now, right off the bat, one thing I don't like about it is that I have inadvertently made the camouflage a little too subtle. So I'm going to have to come back and do that and fix that up. But I don't think I'm going to do that at this point. I think we're going to keep moving forward with painting the ambulance stuff on it. Yeah, because I mean, hell, we got all the tracks and everything done on this thing, so. I gotta find I gotta find a color like figure of Rommel that I just want to like copy. I don't know. I wish I could have sealed those tanks up, but I ran out of time yesterday. As it was, I had a pretty crappy showing last night, and caffeine led the way and got me where I needed to go. Come on. You can do it. And we're going to need a red eventually. And of course, a dribblings of my water. I had a false start this morning. I started it and I'm like, oh crap, let me shut the video down. Like within a couple of seconds. And the reason why is I thought there was a way that I could show this vertically. And there may be, but I'm not very good at figuring stuff out on the computer. I don't have a whole lot of interest in doing it. That's it. It's not that I can't handle it. It's just I don't have a whole lot of interest in going round and round and getting different answers. Is this too big of a step? This may be too big of a step. It is too big of a step. That's better. Because what happens is when I start filming on my phone, I get a shitload of people that come out of nowhere. And a couple of them actually showed up and they were modeler people. I'm surprised. And like my feed's hidden to those people normally. I don't know why. It just is. It doesn't get recommended to them. I thought, okay, is it because it's a mobile connection? Is it because I don't know what the reasoning is. So I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I'm going to start my feed this morning in vertical. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. So the problem with looking up some things on the internet is I have no problem looking things up the internet, but if you get constant misinformation or it just gets really frustrating. And it's stuff that changes constantly. Like it doesn't bother me like if I was looking like for what kind of markings a certain unit in World War II had, because that's going to stay consistent. It's not like, well, we've created some extra World War II units and now here that, it's like that stuff doesn't change once you find it, assuming you find the correct thing. But technology shit, man, you'll come back in 6 months and, oh, that's from a different version of this program that isn't used anymore. So If you know any of that information, it's not useful. So it's just a constant shell game. And I don't like that. I don't like that stuff. I get frustrated by that kind of shit all the time. It's not that I mind looking things up. It's that I know what this stuff that I'm looking up is going to be different in a little while. And I don't do that for a living. So it's not my business really to keep up with it. This will end up looking great. It's just going to take a little bit of time. This is definitely one of those things where you could have some Soviet scouts or something like that ambushing something on a road. And this thing comes by and you got to drive through them and kill the scouts. You got somebody important here that's injured or something. You got some... inspirational guy. That you want to keep alive. And the enemy, if they capture him, will kill him. If they find out who he is. Got to be a member of a Panzer division because otherwise they wouldn't even have this vehicle. You know, they're not going to have some guy in a non-motorized unit send a motorized half-track to go pick them up. You know, like this ambulance is for Panzer units. You know, they're not going to be like, hey, we got a guy in 178th Infantry Division over 26 kilometers away that we need to transport him to. Go send this half-track. Half-tracks aren't going to be there. They barely had enough half-tracks in the motorized units. In the Panzer units, really. I'm pretty sure even the motorized... Well, this is past motorized divisions. Motorized divisions were called Panzer Grenadier divisions by that point, but motorized divisions... I bet motorized divisions didn't have any half-tracks. Something like the, 3rd Motorized Division. In like 1942, 1941, 1942, something like that, they wouldn't have any half-tracks. If you don't have half-tracks already to carry your infantry into battle, you're not going to have any other auxiliary half-tracks. I mean, you might have 251s and 250s. You're not going to have any of those. You might have an SDKFZ 7 or, an SDKFZ 10, but like half-tracks to move infantry in, you're not going to have any of those unless you have you have them in your Panzer Grenadier units. That's just my guess. That makes sense. I could be wrong, because sometimes many things that make sense, that should make sense, don't. So some Panzer guy is being transported that's injured. He needs to go to the rear lines. I don't know who that would be. that's not an SS guy. I'll pay an SS soonish. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. Some. Okay, I think this is the part where we need to do the red cross. Now, was I smart enough to take a screenshot of this? I don't care about the news. Stop showing me the news. It's all lies. It's manipulations. Oh, we're going to show you this and omit this other stuff. Let's see, this was before... No, couldn't have been before Spain, or wouldn't have had this. Let's go to downloads. No, let's go to, oh shit, images. Screenshots where it would be. This is the guy that I like. And it looks like crap in a way because he's really zoomed in, but that guy turned out really, really well. Oh, fuck it. SDKFZ 251/8 ambulance. But I actually like painting figures more. And the reason why is because, you know, a tank can look all kinds of different ways and be like, yeah, that works. If a person doesn't look like a person, it doesn't work. So I enjoy doing the figures a lot. Especially the soft plastic figures. Because you're like, soft plastic figure, they're no good. Yeah, they are. You just didn't give them any credit before. And I was guilty of it just like everybody else. Those figures are no good, they're plastic. So, yeah, I think he turned out really well. I think he turned out really well. Hey, I showed you how to do it. Now you know how to do it. Justin, by the way, what is it that I know you do hobby stuff. Do you do Flames of War? I think you're a 15mm guy, aren't you? I was thinking about that the other day. I was going to ask you if you came online. You're like, you knew a question was coming for you, so you didn't show up. I know you had real life stuff to do. Like I said a couple days ago. I said, you know, I need to try to paint every chance I get, because I may come on a day that it's a good day for you and just say I don't feel like painting, and it was a day that you would have been on had it been available. So I'm trying to do this multiple times a day. Oh, this is a video of, okay, there's a little bit of white below it. Okay. Yeah, like that. Flames of War. Okay, but don't. You're modifying the game when you play, right? I think that's what you told me. Okay, so we need to put this in the middle. So the middle is going to be. Let's water this down a little bit more. The middle is going to be about right, like so. And right, like so. Okay. And then we're going to come over to this side. It's going to be like this. And it's going to be like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fatten that line out. You build the tanks the way they're supposed to be and look like. You have 12 unpainted tanks. That's it? Those are rookie numbers, man. Well, you know, Flames of War, they have a lot of good stuff on their website. I don't really like the rules. They're a little too basic, and probably the thing I like the least about the rules is that they claim it's supposed to be a 1-to-1 scale game. Like the one tank represents one tank. It just doesn't feel that way. It feels more like a 1-to-5. Like if it's 1-to-1, why don't you take turret rotation into effect? You know, it should have more detail if it's 1-to-1. But their website's awesome. There's a lot of really useful stuff on their website. It's almost like the people that came up with the stuff on the website, like, yeah, we want a more detailed game. Well, we're not going to get it. Well, screw you. We're going to put that detail in our articles on the website. Now may collect is like 20 tanks. Now may collect is like 20 tanks. I don't know, man. You're speaking in code. I didn't get the code book for that one. Now you might collect 20 tanks? Do what none of us do. Paint the stuff you have, then get more. This isn't the final thing. We're going to go back and forth and back and forth. And because some of the stuff you needed to dry a little bit. I got sucked into reading an article. I don't know. I don't know how it happens. I go and check something on Facebook or I search and I see something, and it's usually just what it is. I check my Facebook and then I'll get suggestions of groups that I don't belong in. And they're not inappropriate, but they're usually movie related. Suggestions for you or something like that. And then I see some article and I start reading it. The next thing you know, I'm reading other people's comments because, you know, that's where the good stuff is, right in the comment section. And there's like wildly different opinions on different movies. Almost like, did you see the same movie I saw? I mean, just like dramatic difference. And a lot of like, I'm going to die on this hill type comments. Like, you know, people that are, you know, people are just dying to be martyrs for a cause that's not a cause that you die for. And there's just wild difference of opinions about things. And Sometimes I have them. I don't want to share them with the random people in the public because, like, I don't really want to interact with them. I mean, I don't know who the hell I'm interacting with. Some weirdo that, is looking to cause problems. But there's movies that people have, and we're just talking about, like historical type movies that I would talk about on this channel. Thin Red Line. I saw it one time. I hated it. I would say from the comments, 75% of the people that watch it dislike the movie. And there's 25 people that are just diehard. Love that movie. And I'm like, all right, I'll watch it again. But I remembered hating the movie because I wanted to see a movie about A. It ended up being a movie about Q. So that's not what I wanted. You know, I went there for strawberry ice cream, and all they had, fuck, that looks good. And all they had was chocolate. And though it was good, it's not the flavor ice cream that I wanted. I'd say most people dislike Thin Red Line. I fall into the major category, most people category in that one, but I don't always fall into the most people category of it. Kelly's Heroes, I'm not in the popular. Now I'll give it another shot, but I remember watching. I was really disappointed about it. Really, I got something I wasn't expecting. And the other movie that was what the article was about, and I started reading it. A much more recent movie. Everybody recommended it to me, and I watched it, and I didn't like it. I don't know if I hated it, but I did not like the movie, and that was Death of Stalin. And Death of Stalin. Oh, it's a black comedy. Okay, all they had to do was give the actors try to do a Russian accent, and that would have made all of the difference in the world for me. I hated it because of that. Oh, it's done on purpose. Okay, well, they made the movie shitty on purpose, in my opinion. Not a popular opinion. Most people would like that movie. Um, I don't believe a Cockney accent has anything to do, and oh, it was done for a reason. This isn't Monty Python, okay? Monty Python gets a pass. Everybody else has to have a little bit of. I see Das Boot. I've seen it twice. I saw it once a long time ago, and I watched it 15 years ago, probably. Maybe 20 years ago. That's one that if I watch it again, the daughter's going to watch it with me. I don't like Jurgen Prochnow. I don't like him as an actor. He was distracting. I think he was the wrong. He didn't look right for me. Other than that, the movie was fine. So, not really a complaint that I didn't like the movie. Just wish they would have used somebody else. I still stand that the best World War II movie out there, from a German perspective, is Generation War. It's a miniseries. That's the best one. I mean, it's not even close. Well, there's not that many to begin with. You got real German actors playing Germans, and you don't know who any of them are. Perfect. As much as I liked Cross of Iron back in the day, it's people you know of. If you haven't seen Generation War, watch Generation War. It's on Amazon. Till it might still be on Amazon. It's excellent. A lot of people recommended me back in the day to watch the Stalingrad movie. It's a German adaptation. And I did way back. Didn't really like it. It focuses too much on, when they were surrounded, which is not what I go to see the movie for. I go see war movies to see shit in action. That's what I see. I go to watch movies like, all right, we're going to take this building, and they go in and they flank and they provide supporting fire, and they go in with grenades and they stab a couple of people, and they go in and somebody surprises them, and that's what I go to see for. Like, and here comes a tank, and then and it opens up on somebody else, and that's what I go to see the movie for. That's what I go see a war movie for. What about Band of Brothers? Yeah, Band of Brothers is great. Band of Brothers is so good that it makes every Some episodes of Band of Brothers are so good that some episodes suck, and they don't suck, but they're like, okay, what's going on? Like the Battle of the Bulge episode, Battle of Band of Brothers, I think it sucks because there's so much action in like the Carentan one that's like, oh, I was expecting better from this. And there's a lot of episodes, and I saw Band of Brothers again recently, and there's a lot of episodes towards the end. It was almost like a Saturday Night Live skit. Like, dude, end it already. Like, the war had already been won, and there was like still 2 episodes. Like, it was just kind of like, get on with it, Crossfire on Prime now, good movie, but I think it looks dated now. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I loved it back in the day because, it was Eastern Front. It was the only thing. And I think Coburn does a pretty good job of doing an accent, okay? We'll leave it at that. It's an accent. Like, make an attempt to not sound like yourself in the movie. But because there's too many times where you got some actor who's talented as an actor. I'm not an actor, and I can fudge accents, and with some training, I feel like I could be really good at them. But I think that's also very important. If you've ever seen the miniseries Versailles, it's excellent. It's kind of a girly, kissy type of movie, okay? But it's very good. And the main guy who plays Louis XIV in that does a superb job as Louis XIV. But he makes zero, and he's an English actor, and he makes zero attempt to do anything even Frenchish. Like, I understand you have to speak in English, right? But don't sound like you're from, you shouldn't sound like you're from England. I'm sorry. You should sound, make a little bit of an attempt, and zero attempt. And I find it very distracting. I find it very, very distracting. So Coburn did some kind of an accent. The Eagle has landed. I have to watch it again. I think that Robert Duvall did some kind of an accent, right? So it doesn't sound like Robert Duvall playing a German with an eye patch, right? Just make some kind of an attempt. I don't understand why that isn't not only the norm, but expected. And like I said, these guys are actors. They should be better at it than I am. And I'd pull it off. I mean, I do, oh, that guy doesn't sound like he's from, Dresden. He sounds like he's from Hamburg. Okay, that's too much. All right, but, to the audience, you need to sound like you're from, the country that you're supposed to be from. If you spoke English. When you make no attempt at all, that's just like, why are we paying you this kind of money if you're supposedly a good actor? Do you think Nazis ever had a base in Antarctica? No. I don't think so. I think that the Germans in World War II are really kind of an interesting sort of thing because in some ways they were really advanced, really ahead of their time, and in other ways they were just really bad government bureaucracy, but not, I mean, just like inefficient. This thing of German efficiency. The Germans are really efficient for some things, but then they're like, they let people get away with, being like incompetent for many years. Just if you were buddies with the right people, you could get away with basically being an idiot. Not everybody, but many people. I was reading this book about the Eastern Front. I forget which it was. It might have been It might have been Putar's book. I'm sure it was either one of Putar's books or David Stahl's books. One of the two. About the drive on Moscow. And one of the guys that was, I don't know what his name is. Nobody knows what his name is because he's a behind the scenes kind of guy. But one of the guys whose job it was to organize how many train loads of supplies each German army group needed to do the drive on Moscow successfully. Forget winter clothes, okay? Everybody thinks, oh, well, it's the winter clothes that screwed the Germans in Moscow. And I've read several things about it, and many of them come to the conclusion that letting the Germans retreat would have been worse. But anyhow, that's to be determined. But just the supplies to get to Moscow successfully, they needed to get, I'm going to use simple numbers, 50 train loads a day. The guy gave them 5. So the guy did like 10% of what he was supposed to do. So it's like a miracle that the Germans did as good as they did, considering the deficiencies that were prevalent in their supply stuff. And that's when they had complete air superiority. It wasn't like, well, we would have sent more train loads of supplies, but they were getting interdicted by aircraft. No, this is in 1941, when there was no Russian Air Force, or they had to be built back, kind of thing. So you had these guys that were just massively overly promising what they could do. Oh yeah, I could do. Yeah, don't worry about it. I got that. Give me some more cognac. They'd be at a party, and then nobody ever like called him out on him and like sent him to the freaking and executed him. This guy ended up like doing his job or he ended up not doing his job in this post for a lot longer than would have been allowed, just because he was a good Nazi or something like that. And it wasn't even close. I mean, it was like 10% of the supplies or something like that. I was like, what the 10% of the train loads. Like one place needed okay, we got to have 70 truckloads a day, which sounds like 70 train loads a day. They got 7, because they needed to change the railroad gauge and all kinds of other reasons. There wasn't enough running stock. They had to use rolling stock from France, and it didn't fit on the same. All kinds of issues. They overpromised what they thought they could do, and they just couldn't do it. Forget the Germans that were actually like on the front lines fighting. I think those guys did fine. It was just all the other supply and all the other stuff that went to them. So this and along the lines of that, there's so many things that come up. German intelligence services were terrible. They'd miss shit all the time. Because a lot of this stuff is they got their position. Guys got their position because of how good of a Nazi were you? Do you really hate these? Do you really hate Jews? Yes. Okay, you're in the position, even though the guy was an idiot. I'm not saying everybody was an idiot. I'm just saying there was a whole lot of that. And I guess it's a good thing, because otherwise, it's amazing that they did as good as they did. Now, I think the reason they did as good as they did was a couple of reasons. First of all, they caught a lot of people with their pants down. They weren't expecting that. And honestly, it's pretty amazing that the Germans built up in 4 years what they did. And I'm sure a lot of them were like, it's payback. Okay, this is our second chance to right what happened. I mean, think about it. They fought a First World War. They had potentially the best army in the First World War. Got fought to a stalemate for 4 years. And yeah, they got into France, and they had some France under them, but they didn't go anywhere. And they attack France in the Second World War, and in 3 weeks it's gone. Like, the fuck? I mean, like, that's pretty amazing. Now, a lot of things had to go wrong for them to do that. A lot of things had to go wrong for the Allies, and a lot of things had to go right for the Germans. But you know what happened. So I think they got really lucky. And the Russians had the same problems too. But I feel like the Russians would have executed people that were like incompetent more than the Germans would. That doesn't mean that the Germans didn't execute people, but you know. And then you got other stuff. The Soviets invade Finland and have a tough time at it. So what would have happened if the Soviets had not invaded Finland? They would have been less prepared to fight the Germans, and maybe would have made a difference. But it's interesting. I don't really read political things of the Second World War. It doesn't interest me. I'm a tactics guy. I want to read the book where they were in this house and the Mark III went around and flanked them and they countered a BT-7. They knocked it out and then it went. That kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I want to read that gives me fuel for scenarios. I don't read little political things. So I specifically get these books that I think are going to have some of that in there, and occasionally some of the political stuff sneaks its way in. And the political stuff I'm talking about, I'm not talking about modern day political stuff. I'm talking about, stuff that would involve like something that would be in Mein Kampf, which I'm never going to read. It doesn't interest me, you know, or kind of Communist Manifesto. I'm not going to read shit like that, right? But when I was a kid and we played World War II, and a lot of it is influenced by probably the movies that we saw at the time that were, I wouldn't say the clean Wehrmacht, but it certainly didn't focus on concentration camp stuff, and it didn't concentrate on the Germans being such Nazis. Okay. So at the time when we're playing, World War II, it's like, oh well, the Germans are just, it's just payback for the First World War. Like, and then you read, like I said, I'm not reading these political things, but it was either in Brutar's or Stahl's book or whatever that you're talking about driving into Russia, and I'm coming to the conclusion. It gets brought up that basically, what we would play these things and we'd have these conversations like, could the Germans have won? Forget the Germans winning World War II. Could they have won in Russia? And we're like, yeah, all they had to do was don't show up to Russia like the Aztecs. That's basically what the Germans did. The Germans showed up to Russia like the Aztecs. Hey, we're here to kill everybody. Yeah, well, we don't like our old masters. You guys are dying too. What do you mean we're dying too? We don't like the guys that had us under the thumb. I don't care. You're Russian. We're going to kill you. I'm like, you're not going to make any friends that way. Okay? And we were thinking, okay, that's all the Germans would have had to do. Just show up as liberators. But they never would have done that, because the whole reason that they're in Russia, and like I said, I'm not reading political stuff. This is what I've come across is the whole reason that they're going to Russia is to exterminate these people and take their land. So they're going to not exterminate everybody, but they're going to move them to places where they can build their war material and their half tracks and their panzers and everything. And when their human carcasses are spent, then they'll kill them, or then they'll bury them, or whatever they're going to do. But it's not like, hey, we're going to be nice to you until you beat all the Russians, and then we're going to come down on you. It's like they're trying to do all the bad shit at the same time. It's almost like, okay, we've got 1 year to get all this done. All right, so we're gonna haul the people off that we don't like to the gas chambers. The other ones we're gonna use in as slave labor. We're gonna piss everybody off at the same time, and we're gonna fight the Russians. Oh, and the partisans at the same time. It's like, they're on this crusade that a normal person doesn't understand. Because a normal person would have been like, okay, just if you, what's your purpose here? Beat the communists. All right, how do we do that? Well, 50% of the people that live there hate the regime and they're being treated like slaves. So let's get them on our side. No, they don't think that way. They think like, these guys are all insects and we're going to kill them all at one time. And I'm like, it didn't work. So, you can't think logically about something when it's not a logical person thinking. Because to me, I'm like, Germans, Russians are both white people. They have a lot of the same ancestry. What's the problem? Oh, well, they're subhuman. I'm like, you know, we don't, a normal person wouldn't understand it. You gotta think like a racist, I guess. It's not even a racist, just somebody that's unwell. I think a lot of people were like, yeah, that guy's got good ideas. And other people were like, whatever, we just want our payback for World War One. And then it's like, oh shit, what have we done? So speaking of the Red Cross, Russians and Germans didn't give a shit about the. I don't know if I've ever seen a Russian ambulance with a Red Cross on it, but if there was a Red Cross ambulance on the Eastern Front, Russians wouldn't care to shoot it up. And I find it really hard to watch the Russian World War II movies because they're so full of shit. They're so full of propaganda. A lot of the Germans either don't make movies or they make them in a way that I think are done well. I think the way that they did Generation War is done well. Das Boot, I remember being done well as well. Like, you don't have to be proud of the shit that you did, but, if you put something in there, it's like, let's put the storyline in there that the people in there don't really realize all the bad stuff that Germany's doing while they're fighting for Germany. And that's an okay angle to do. But the Russian movies are like, oh, everything's just hunky-dory. Then the Germans came and, and killed all our people, and now we're going to rise up against them. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, everything wasn't hunky-dory. And second of all, your leader made a deal with the other mother, and you guys were in bed together. Hitler was too impatient, yeah. All right, guys, need to start the breakfast routine. Uh-oh, shit. The other thing that's really funny is that both Hitler and Stalin, their armies did much worse when they started meddling with things. Like in 1941, Stalin was like basically telling guys they wouldn't be able to leave. You couldn't leave the pocket. No, you can't. You can't. Not one step back. We're going to shoot you. We're going to do all. And every time they did that, they would lose hundreds of thousands of men surrounded. And when Hitler started doing the same thing would happen. They wouldn't lose hundreds of thousands of men, but they would lose tens of thousands of men surrounded. So it's kind of like the opposite of both things. So I'm reading an Army at Dawn book about Tunisia. And apparently it talks about in 1942, the Germans had air superiority over Tunisia. And it just floors me. It floors me that you would have the British and the Americans landing Operation Torch, pushing from both sides of Tunisia, and the Germans would have air superiority. That's really interesting. I'm sure it wasn't total air superiority. I'm sure it wasn't like the Allies over Normandy or Germany in 1941 on the Eastern Front. Yeah, that's probably the two biggest extremes. Okay, I think this looks pretty good to from the starting point. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of this. Yeah, Cross of Iron. James Mason doesn't do an accent. Neither does what's his name, the shaggy looking dude, Warner. He doesn't do an accent either. Like, dude, you're supposed to be an actor, man. I can't imagine James Mason being very popular in England. He was a conscientious objector, didn't join the Second World War, and then when it's time to make movies, he's playing Germans. I'm like, making war movies, he's playing Germans. I'm like, should you really be here? And I like James Mason, but it does make you think. Actors are definitely cut from a different cloth. Or some actors. Did build SDKFZ 231 heavy scout car armored vehicles. Off to work. Yeah, everybody's off to work. I'll be there myself. Damn it, it's yak shaving day. Just an extra 5 minutes. Actually, I don't have to shave. I choose to. If you don't look good, we don't look good. Okay, well, this is going to take a little bit of time to paint to get it right, just like any of my stuff. It's going to take a while. And you go back and forth and you tinker with it, and you know, you don't have to use a decal. You can just, I mean, shit, I could spend weeks looking for the right decal and then getting them in. Well, we're probably going to redo the camouflage. I'm still going to follow where it is there, make it a little thicker in some places. But that's the problem with the airbrushing is, you know, once you start weathering it, and I actually have not weathered this at all. This is just kind of like the fade of the base color. But once you start weathering it, the camouflage ends up becoming a lot more subtle. So, and it looks, you know, it looks fine. It's just not what I wanted. I wanted the thicker, I wanted the more prominent three-tone camouflage. And you know, the farther I get away from it, actually the better it looks. But, all right, folks. Thanks for stopping by. We'll